You're listening to What She Said, a podcast about blogging, creativity and life online, hosted by me, Lucy Lucraft, a freelance journalist and blogger based in Brighton. Hi Lola, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome. So for anybody that doesn't know who you are, do you want to just give us a little rundown of who you are?
I'm really bad at this part. I can never concisely explain what I do because there's a lot of parts to it. But I'm Lola. I'm a writer, podcaster, creative business coach, and the founder of One Girl Band, which is a collective and co-working space for female entrepreneurs and creatives. And that always sounds like such an elevator pitch, but that's just that's it.
I think that's really good. When you say you're not very good at describing what you do, that's perfect.
Well, it just always sounds so staged.
No.
But that's it. That's what I do.
That's who you are. That's what you do. So how did you start out? Because you started out doing something not completely different, but when you first kind of started freelancing, it was LH Designs, wasn't it? You were brush lettering.
Yeah, I was a hand letterer and designer, branding designer, kind of a lot more, I wouldn't say a lot more creative, but a lot more hands-on. So I started my first business, which was LH Design, when I was 19. So that was, 5 years ago in May would have been when I started it. So kind of a long time. Kind of not, but kind of a long time.
Yeah, probably feels like a long time.
Yeah, oh God, it feels like 10 years. 5. And that basically came from me being made redundant from a little graphic design job I had, where I made kind of teaching resources for schools. So it's like worksheets and G is for giraffe, etc., etc.
Cute.
It was cute, but incredibly boring and mind-numbingly boring. And it was kind of my first proper, I'd say, proper office job. I was in retail from kind of 13 to, up until a couple of years ago. So it was my first kind of foray into office life. And I was made redundant and was honestly kind of happy for it. I was kind of ecstatic that I was made redundant as much as it meant we had no money and I had no job. But it pushed me to do the stuff I actually wanted to do. And I'd been kind of hand lettering from a very young age. I was the kid that could never draw, but wanted to do something hands-on, wanted to kind of be the artist, etc. It all happened very quickly and also very organically at the same time. Like at school you're not taught that being self-employed is an option. So I never really thought it was an option. Both my parents are self-employed. My dad's a plumber and my mum owns a shop. So I've kind of been surrounded by people who work for themselves, but I never thought it was an option for me. Because you're not taught that. You're kind of conditioned to go to uni, get a job, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't go to uni. I moved down here to Brighton instead. And I just started selling prints, really bad prints and greeting cards on Etsy. And then didn't make a sale kind of for the first 4 or 5 months. But within those 4 and 5 months, I was just teaching myself absolutely everything I could teach myself about business, about marketing, about just getting the products out there. And it eventually started kind of coming to fruition. And then I did a graphic that was shop independent this Christmas, and I kind of did a blog post that accompanied it about why we should shop independent at Christmas, put it on Instagram, and it blew up. Quite literally, it went viral, as it were, and that meant that everyone could see who I was, and the brand got recognition, and that was kind of the turning point for everything, where I realised I was sort of on the right track and doing things that were working. It was kind of a snowball effect from there. Things rapidly kind of went up, and then I started One Girl Band, I think, definitely that year. In 2015, I started One Girl Band because I was just feeling incredibly lonely, incredibly isolated, the same old story kind of thing. And I was meeting or connecting with all these women on Instagram who were doing really cool things, but also feeling incredibly lonely, incredibly isolated. And I just had this craving to kind of show that we were all in the same boat, that no matter what you see on Instagram, no matter kind of how many peonies next to a white wall you see, like there's still a lot of rubbish behind the scenes. So yeah, I started meetups. We did kind of monthly meetups in a restaurant in Brighton, and then again it grew very fast, and I kind of knew from the first meetup that this was what I wanted to do, was to get women who worked for themselves in the same room, in the same kind of just people who got it in the same room and could bounce ideas off each other, could support each other, could empower one another. And yeah, that's kind of what happened.
And when did you open your co-working space? Around the same time?
No. So that opened February last year, so February 2017.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of a jump from, we started the meetups in 2015, and then, yeah, so a good 2-3 years before the space opened. But now we have like coffee mornings every month and expertise sessions where we get kind of speakers in to kind of talk about their expertise and to teach everyone something about business or mindset or self-care. And then we've got the space as well. So it's kind of grown to this, I don't know, this kind of umbrella of things. Yeah. And then I shut LH Design down in September last year because I was doing my coaching, I was doing One Girl Band, and I just fell out of love with LH Design, and it kind of had served its purpose for that time. And it just felt right to kind of move on from it.
I think that's one of the things that's really cool about you, is that you're really honest about your journey. You don't talk about about where you are in isolation of, hey, I'm this, and just post your best and then use the right hashtags and you'll get to the right place, and I'm using Instagram as a specific example, but you know what I mean. I think it's a good metaphor for everything in business. You talk about the journey, and you talk about the fact that at one point in your career you went back to working in retail to supplement your income, so it took the pressure off your endeavours in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I went back to, can I say the name? I guess I can say the name. I went to work in Toast, which is obviously, everyone knows Toast. And I had really good hours. I only worked 12 to 3 Monday to Friday. So when I applied and when I got the job, I was like, well, that's great because I can do everything around it. Yeah. But I did less than when I didn't have, you get up, you have to get ready for work, and then you go to work, do work, come back, and you're just knackered because you've been standing up for only 3 hours, but it's obviously brain power and everything like that. So I was just doing nothing. And as much as it was helping take the pressure off of paying rent and paying the bills, I was again becoming miserable because I wasn't doing what I loved. And I kind of felt like I was compromising on everything I was standing for and everything I was talking about online and how I run my business, everything like that. So I did leave. I think I went back to retail for like 6 months and then was like, okay, no, this has given me the push to realise that what I'm doing, working for myself, is what I want to do. And I'm not going to I'm just going to work really hard at that and make it work somehow. And it gave me that kind of kick up the arse to actually focus on it and be serious about it, which I kind of think I needed. I mean, I started at 19.
It's so young, isn't it, when you look back?
Like, I wouldn't have admitted it at the time because, you're stubborn as heck when you're 19. But I was very naive. I probably still am naive. Like, I made mistakes like anyone does, but I, in my head, was like, no, I need to be the best I can be. I need to be this kind of young, incredible entrepreneur who is kind of overpassing anyone. And I think going back to retail and kind of letting my ego take a hit, letting my pride take a hit, definitely helped, because it was like, okay, this is what I want to do, and going back has shown me this is what I want to do, so I'm going to take it seriously now. I'm going to try my absolute hardest to make this work. And I think it worked. Hopefully it worked.
Well, it propelled you on to the next stage in your career. So I love that. I love that. I think it's brilliant. And one of the other things that you talk about, which I love, and every time you talk about it, I raise my hands in a hallelujah, is the side hustle and just that word. I hate
That word.
Yeah. I hate it too. I think it's terrible. It doesn't serve us, and I think it's something that seems to be reserved for women. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the hustle, because you've actually got a course. Has it closed now? A course?
Yeah, so I've got the Busy Doesn't Equal Success course, which is closed at the moment, but it's coming back in the new year.
Oh, great, okay.
But yeah, just hustle in general just makes me want to throw up. Like, I spent the first 3 years of being in business hustling, and I'm doing air quotes there. You can't see, but I'm doing air quotes. Hustling and working like 14-hour days and sacrificing so much time with family and with friends and just working myself into the ground, like so much so that I ended up collapsing and fractured my skull, and it was all very dramatic, and it was a massive wake-up call to realise that I'd just been listening to all these people who were kind of glorifying busyness and glorifying the hustle, and like hustle's always surrounded by like pink and kind of it's always an like it I think you're right about it being kind of a genderized thing, which is sad because it's also it's pushed by men, like this whole hustle. If you have spare time, you're not deserving of being a business owner. Like, it's pushed by these male marketers who claim to know everything, kind of thing. Like these gurus, again, air quotes, gurus.
Yeah.
And after kind of my burnout, I had to turn my life around because I was literally killing myself. I was injuring myself because I thought I had to be doing this sort of work. I thought I had to be working 14-hour days in order to be taken seriously, in order to reach my version of success, in order to be successful. I thought I had to do these things. And when I came out of hospital, I carried on working. I carried on working how I was, like very long days. And it wasn't until the nurse rang me up to kind of check how I was doing. And I said, like, I'm okay, I just can't really concentrate on work, like, I'm finding it really hard. And she was like, why are you working? You've just fractured your skull. You've just broken your head and you're still working. Like, if you had a broken foot or a broken arm or anything, you wouldn't be in work. And if you had a normal job, like normal, conventional 9 to 5, you wouldn't be at work. And just hearing that made me realise that as freelancers, self-employed, business owners, whatever you want to call it, as people who work for themselves, we're being fed this myth of if you work for yourself, you don't have the same, I don't know if it's benefits or advantages, you don't have the same sort of stance as conventional jobs. You have to work 1,000 times harder in order to prove your worth, to prove that you're serious to be doing this kind of thing. And it was a real wake-up call, and since then I've massively changed how I worked and almost just stopped giving a fuck. I especially this year, I was just talking, I had my final call with my coach this morning, and I was saying to her, I was like, in the last couple of months, I mean, it's been a pretty hard year for me anyway, but in the last couple of months, I've just reached a point where I don't care. Like, I don't care what my career looks like to other people, or if I'm growing fast enough, or if it looks like I'm growing fast enough, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to if it looks like we're doing the right things, and that is probably comes into social media and everything like that. But yeah, I've just reached a point of I don't want to hustle, I don't want to kill myself to work hard and to get the best results. Like, I know that I get the best results when I work less and when I'm focused on work, and when I'm focused on work for less hours, I get more done and I get better work done. And we kind of just need to get out of this rut of work hard, like just work smart rather than hard, I think. And I'm glad the conversation is happening more, and I'm glad it's opening up and people are starting to realise you don't have to hustle, but there's still so much work to be done with it.
So let's talk about your course as if it's happening now, because I think this episode will be released. In fact, I'll make sure that it's released in January, so we can just talk about the course as if it's open at that higher price point.
It's open, it's
yeah, exactly. So your course, how does it work? What is it, self-paced? What are kind of the guiding principles behind it?
Yeah,
Tell us everything.
It's all self-paced. There's 5 modules. Number 1, in fact, I'm going to have to get it up because I cannot remember. That would be a magician if I could remember everything. Bear with. No, that's a podcast. That's definitely not what I meant. There we are. Yeah, so it's all self-paced. It's all DIY. You can chop in and out. You can do it all at once, or you can do like one module a week kind of thing. I always recommend 1 module a week because it kind of keeps you what's the word?
It's like the momentum of it.
Yeah. God, my vocabulary is not working. But there's 5 modules, and module 1's getting clear on what you want. So figuring out your version of success, your why, and how you want your work week to look. So it kind of looks at what your work week is now, and perhaps what you don't like about it, or what isn't working for you, and kind of gets you thinking about what you want your ideal work week to look like. And then module 2 is your goals and aims. So it kind of teaches you how to set intentional and purposeful goals without putting an unholy amount of pressure on yourself and without overwhelming yourself, and just kind of showing that you can get to your version of success without burning out, without working in... I hate the phrase working hard because it makes it... Because if you say, I don't work hard, that makes it sound like you're not working. But you know what I mean? Without burning out, essentially. And module 3 is work smarter, not harder. So it's basically just a bunch of systems and processes I use in order to work smarter, not harder. And then module 4 is just how we can actually achieve balance. I don't like using the word balance because I think balance isn't a linear thing. There's always going to be weeks where we do have to work a little more hours, or if we've got a launch coming up or new products coming out, like we are going to have to work more hours and a bit harder those weeks. But there's also going to be weeks where family stuff happens and where life gets in the way. So balance to me is a bit of a... I'm still not sure about that word, but module 4 is basically figuring out ways that you can create white space within your schedule, learning to say no, and overcoming guilt, because unfortunately as women, guilt comes into a lot of this, a lot of avoiding burnout, avoiding, we can't say no. No is a very hard word for us to say, which is heartbreaking because men don't even flutter their eyelids at the word no.
It's such a shame, isn't it? Because that is one of the best things that you can learn, is how to say no with grace and without feeling any guilt. Yeah. That's what opens your schedule up, I think. I've certainly found that.
100%. This year, and maybe the year before, was kind of the first time where I really started saying no, even to things where I kind of thought, that might be quite good, but my gut was instantly like, no, don't do it. Like, I've learned so many times to listen to my gut, because every single time I don't, I regret it instantly. Yeah. Like, within 5 minutes, something will happen where I've gone, why didn't I listen to my gut?
And do you think that kind of laser kind of gut intuition comes from getting really, really clear on your why? Because that's what you talk about, your why a lot, and coming back to that always. And that's certainly something that I've learned also.
Yeah, I kind of think of your why as the pillar of all your values. So it's almost like the foundation of everything you're doing, because why do things and agree to do things that aren't in alignment with your why? Because it's getting you further from where you want to be, and it's also making you miserable in the process. So kind of having a very clear why and a very clear vision of what you want to achieve and where you want to be, it just helps you to A, say no to opportunities that don't align with that, but B, to really become self-aware and get your intuition up and go, no, do you know what? That isn't right for me. That isn't in alignment with what I want to do. So I'm going to say no, or I'm going to give it to someone else. I'm going to recommend someone else. Like, there's so much power in listening to yourself, but it does take time. I think it's definitely something that is a practice, a daily practice.
But from a practical point of view, What got you closer to? Because I think also your why changes.
Oh, 100%. It's not
as your business evolves.
It's not a solid thing. I think it's a very it's an ever-growing thing. It changes constantly.
If you've ever listened to the podcast before, you'll have heard me mention the blogger course, and for good reason too. Over a series of weeks, Monica shares tips on creating video content, branding, writing, and the dreaded niche. In fact, this was such a game changer of a chapter for me that I went from thinking I was just a travel blogger to knowing that I am something completely different and that I have a super tight niche. It really, really changed my blogging life. The course isn't the only thing that you'll get, as all chapters are available for audio download, and when you join, you become a member of the private blogger course Facebook group, where members share tips, tricks, and opportunities too. Monica also gave members of the course the chance to join her on a press trip this year. If you want to sign up, head to thebloggercourse.com today and get 20% off with the code WhatSheSaid. 20% off with the code WhatSheSaid. So what sort of practical things have you found have got you closer to your why?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, sorry, put you on the spot.
No. I think in a practical sense, it's mostly just been from experience with me. I probably can't really pinpoint anything right now, but with getting closer to my why, it is just kind of figuring out what makes sense for me and where I want to go. So, for instance, if someone was to email me in 10 minutes saying, do you want to collaborate on a hand lettering project? As much as I would like to do that right now, I won't, because it's not in alignment with where I want to go, because that was before. That was the time before kind of thing. Or and then in kind of the opposite sense, if someone was like, do you want to, I don't know, be on my podcast and talk about burnout? I'd be like, yeah, because that's what I want to push. I want to push this message of we can avoid burnout. We don't have to kill ourselves to get to where we want to be. So it's kind of my why, again, changes constantly, but it tends to be in a similar theme, and that is helping as many women as possible reach their version of success and reach a life that they desire and deserve. And for me to have some sort of sense of contentment. I never say happiness anymore, because I don't think happiness is something we should strive for. I think, again, it's not a linear thing. It's like little moments of joy, I think, are happiness. It's very similar to kind of burping or or it's like they're random, they just happen, just little moments of joy. And I think that's what happiness is. But I mean, I suffer quite badly from depression and severe panic disorder. So as long as I feel calm, connected and content, that is my why. So everything I agree to do, or any opportunity I chase, or any kind of new service I put out, or any content I put out has to align with that. If that all makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's a really hard one, isn't it? Because I suppose there isn't really a practical way of getting to your...
No, because it's all intuition. Yeah. Like, it's all what you want. I would definitely, if anyone listening to this wants to figure out their why, definitely read Start With Why by Simon Sinek, because that's what kind of got me onto all of this. And he has many, many practical points and resources, because he's done the science all behind it. Whereas I got a D in science, so I'm probably not the best to talk about that.
So going back to how your business has evolved and how you kind of work with women on achieving the life that they desire and deserve, how does kind of diversity play into it? Because you speak up quite a lot you're an intersectional feminist, and you speak up a lot about diversity and making sure that we hit all those touch points, because there are plenty, and we were talking about this the other day, there are plenty of things that you can often see online in terms of panels and they're just white women. And we were talking about it, and you said something really funny. You were like, the only diverse thing on this panel was a brunette.
Yeah.
So, but how do you kind of make sure that in your space it's safe and inclusive? Because that's a big task. It's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, and I should kind of prefix all of this with I'm definitely still learning. I mean, I think we all are. I think all of this is an education in kind of counteracting white supremacy and getting a space for everyone on the table. Like, that is essentially what I want to do, is create a space for everyone at the table, because we all deserve to be at that table, not just kind of white middle class women, and that's coming from a white kind of working to middle class women. Like, there's just it's not over. I think a lot of people assume that racism and sexism and all the isms I mean, this could be a long conversation. I'll try not to kind of go too far into it, but with One Girl Band especially, like, we aren't, so I prefix everything with saying self-identifying females, because we're not just for cisgendered females, because again, that wouldn't be inclusive. The only people we don't really serve are cis men, and that of course comes with its controversies. I get a lot of emails. Yeah, I get a lot of emails from men being like, why can't I come? Why aren't you including us? That spiel, which is, again, I wouldn't say fair enough, because I hate that phrase, but it's a conversation to have, and it's and with my response, it makes them realise, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, women do need a space where they feel safe, where they feel calm, and where they don't have to worry about putting up with office banter and kind of this archaic, antedated work ethic that we're still living in, and the workplace, the kind of environment that some workplaces encourage almost, and what they breed. That was basically a big reason as to why we started the co-working space, because I would go and do kind of trial days at co-working spaces, at mixed co-working spaces, and feel incredibly uncomfortable, feel incredibly intimidated, almost like my business was a hobby. And that it wasn't taken seriously, that I was probably earning more than most of the people in there, and I was probably, I don't know, like, it was just bizarre. As you would walk in, you would kind of feel, just intimidated and just not very comfortable, and I knew I needed to create a space for self-identifying women where they could go and feel calm, feel safe. But in terms of inclusivity and diversity, because obviously with the podcast and with our events, I try very hard to keep it all in mind, and I try and avoid the white middle class women on a panel, essentially. Like, it's too important of a conversation to sweep under the rug, as uncomfortable as it can be, as inarticulated as you can feel sometimes. Like, sometimes, I mean, I've definitely used my privilege and have been silent on things because I haven't felt like I've had the right words to say things, and that's disappointing to me, because even if we don't feel we have the right words, we should still speak up, because there are people who can't speak up, and they get pushed down, they get oppressed for just saying, I don't agree with this, and that isn't fair. So it's just being aware of my privilege and aware of how I can bring as many people to the table as possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think you do. Yeah, we're all learning. I think you do a good job. There are plenty of spaces that aren't inclusive and you can see aren't even striving to be inclusive. So
like, there's no mention of it. There's no hint at it, which is, in 2018, like, that's just disappointing. Like, we've got Google, we can we know how to research it. We don't have to kind of take up, for example, we don't have to take up women of colour's time by telling them to tell us how we can do better. Like, Google it. You'll find the answers there.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think, I love how you prefix it as well with that you're learning, because I'm learning too. We're all learning. But you're so right. It's so much more important. And I say this all the time. Just say it clumsily rather than say nothing at all. Because if your intention is good, it doesn't really matter. As long as your intention is to raise other people up and raise awareness, then it doesn't matter if you say it and get it wrong and someone comes back to you and says, actually, you know what, that was offensive. Just apologise. Just learn and don't do it again.
This is the thing, like, I think to say it clumsily and to make mistakes and for people to call you out, I think calling out is a good thing in most respects because it helps you learn. Like, there's been times, I mean, I probably just then have said something that isn't, that probably isn't correct, but and then someone gets back and says, oh, actually, no, this isn't the right way to say that, or there's a better way of saying it. That's then, I know the next time that's then the correct way to say it. So being called out isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I welcome it. So call me out.
That is an open call out to call Lola out. So just
but also don't. But you can if you want. But
just slide into her DMs.
Oh dear. No, but you know what I mean. Like we shouldn't just be silent because we're scared of saying the wrong thing.
Totally.
We need to talk about it. We need to be open about this because there's people who can't have this conversation without being killed, and that's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I also wanted to talk briefly on coaching and mentoring and your experience of it and some of the things that we were talking about the other day. And of course, only talk on what you feel comfortable to do. We can cut anything else out. because we've both had the same coach. Are you okay if I say?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. We've both been coached by Jen Carrington. I've had a wonderful experience. But
she's an angel, an absolute angel.
She's amazing.
I love her.
But how about some of the negative experience? Because I think we've both been in that bubble of seeing coaches, seeing courses, seeing vulnerable people feel that they yes. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know that I have strong feelings about the coaching world and the wellness world in general, if we can even put coaching under that. I, again, probably can't articulate it very well because it is something I feel quite strongly about and I get quite angry about it all. But I've been coaching for 2 years now. I've properly a year, so like my full-time business has been coaching for a year, but I was dipping in and out before I shut down LH Design. So I'm known as, well, I put out there that I'm a creative business coach, but I don't actually like putting it out there because I don't agree with how coaches put themselves. Like, this is the thing, I can't articulate this very well, so you're going to have to edit the heck out. But I can't articulate it without being a massive dick, so it's like trying to figure it out. I don't agree with the manipulation techniques that the coaching and wellness community can uphold. I don't agree with the kind of, and again, this is just my stance. There's going to be people who don't agree with what I'm saying, and that is totally fine. That's life. We all have different opinions, but I feel uncomfortable with profiting off of people's vulnerability and suffering. So that is why my coaching, or at least how I go about my coaching and my approach and how I market it and how I sell it, I've always done it a certain way because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person who, when a client says they can't afford to pay you, go, well, you're not serious about your business. Or if you can't invest in yourself, you're not serious about your business. Like, I don't agree with that. We all have different money troubles. We all have different relationship with money. And yes, we should work on our money mindset. And that is a big thing of what I teach. But it again comes from a very privileged place to be able to say to someone, don't worry about the money, just think about how much an investment it is in yourself.
Yes.
Like, that is a big thing to say to someone who can't afford a package of $3,000. And I know that sounds very rich coming from a coach, and it probably doesn't sound great, but there's just something about this kind of, this myth of coaching and how there's a lot of people popping up doing it, which is great because that means more people to help more people. But I think we've got to be so careful about how we're making people feel when we sell our services and how we market to them, and how just this whole manipulation culture, I'm just done with it, and I see it all the time, and it's just, it makes me angry.
Yeah. We have similar views on it, basically.
Yeah.
So I won't necessarily add to it because I completely agree with what you've said. I think it's so difficult, isn't it? Because on the one hand, I know and have seen and have had transformative.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Effects from coaching, and I find it difficult to go it alone. I do need a coach, and I don't have one at the moment.
You need that accountability to kind of keep you going and keep the momentum going. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, coaching can be this amazing thing, and it is an amazing thing. I love nothing more than sitting down with my clients and helping them get that little step further. And there are some coaches out in the world who are doing amazing things and transforming people's lives just from 1 hour calls every 2 weeks. Like, that is amazing. But there's just something about the culture of it all, and the environment, and the kind of, there's like a dark underlayer that I don't think a lot of people see. And it's the reason why I'm stepping back from coaching, because I just don't want to be in that sphere anymore. I want to focus on my writing, on the podcast, and on One Girl Band. And so that's good. So I've gone on a massive rant. I do apologise.
Not at all. No, I love it. That's what she said is all about. And just a note to Hannah, the editor, my lovely editor. Sorry about all the editing.
Yeah, sorry. There's a lot. You're a star. Thank you, Hannah.
We love you. That feels like a good note to end it on. So, can you tell us a little bit about your course, how much it costs, where people can buy it, and where everyone can find you online?
Yeah, so the Busy Doesn't Equal Success course is on the One Girl Band website, which is onegirlband.co.uk. It's 125. There's also payment plans available. And I'm on Instagram at Lola Hoad _ and at onegirlband _ and Twitter, but I tend to just retweet memes and try and be funny on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you can find me at Lucy Lucraft everywhere, but I mostly hang out on Instagram. You can find old episodes of What She Said over at lucylucraft.com, where you'll also find me chatting about all things blogging, travel, vegan life, and zero waste living too. Lastly, I know everybody asks this and it's a total pain in the ass, but please think about leaving the show a rating and review. It makes a huge difference to getting the show out to new listeners, and for every review you leave, I'll donate £2 to charity. So that's £1 for you and £1 from me. The chosen charity changes each month, so listen out for it in the intro each week. Thanks for listening.